welcome back. Once again, adventurers, to Let's Play Chaos Child. In the last episode, Takuru and Mio were able to use the data and the facility contained within the basement of Hikariwo Academy to fashion themselves a Rorschach of their own that will hopefully cure the unfortunate victims of Chaos Child Syndrome. Whether or not it's enough to overpower the sumo sticker, aka the 11th Rorschach in its entirety, remains to be seen. Unfortunately, in their jubilation, they had underestimated the gravity of the situation. Because Shuichi Wakui has been here all along. Yeah, it wasn't surprising that he'd remain here after everyone else had departed the academy thanks to Mio and Shinjo's efforts to clear out the entire school so they could infiltrate. And as before, Wakui is using his Gigalomaniac powers to put us at a complete disadvantage. He's already sent Mio somewhere in the Dirac Sea. And unfortunately, neither Takuru nor Serika have their own Gigalomaniac powers, to say nothing of Shinjo, who was either brainwashed by Shuichi or has absolutely no idea of what's even going on down here, since he is, we assume, still guarding the entrance. We've heard Wakui's big monologue about the Committee of 300 observing the situation unfolding in Shibuya and dealing with the aftermath of Genichi Narose's own grand schemes. But we've also run into a snag because Wakui seems all too eager for us to use our 12th Rorschach to cure everyone. And the reason I say that is because, well, for a twofold reason. First of all, we don't actually know whether it will actually work as intended, and second of all, is this one world order experiment that Wakui plans to unveil in front of the committee. In other words, a grand illusion that will affect the minds of every single person here in Shibuya.
と言っても、まあそんなに難しい話じゃない。要するに、症候群者に対する新たなストレステストをしようと思ったわけ。
Yeah, the Chaos Child Syndrome patients were pretty much his guinea pigs the whole time.
彼らが妄想シンクロで作り上げた平穏な渋谷の生活に対してね、その平穏をかき乱すような事件を少しずつ起こしていく。そして、
Just when I thought things couldn't get twisted, we've seen flashbacks of the first two Return of the New Generation Madness victims. Which can only mean one thing. Everything that we've experienced up until this point has been a delusion this whole time. Sure, Wataru Sakuma and Serika Onoe were involved and carried out the Return of the New Generation madness. But it was Shuichi Wakui pulling the strings the whole time.
その事件がどのレベルまで達した時に彼らのストレス係数は限界になるのか、そして限界に達した症候群者たちは平穏を取り戻そうと再び新たな妄想シンクロを行うか否か。
Yeah, these revelations, they just keep on coming.
これをワンワールドオーダーの場合に当てはめるとこういうことになる。非支配者階級は支配者階級による弾圧や搾取といったストレスにどれだけ耐えられるのか、どれだけ善良な愚民のままでいられるのか。逆にどこまでストレスをかけると彼らは限界に達してしまうのか、そして限界に達した彼らは自分たちの幸福を取り戻そうと支配者階級に対して反乱を企てるか否か。
Sounds like Wakui is basically attempting an anarchy experiment of perverse proportions. Sorry, portions, sorry.
僕はそんな実験をしようとしてたのさ。
So yeah, that's another absolute shock to the system. This whole ordeal, the entirety of the Return of the New Generation madness. Shuichi Wakui, this man right here, is the true mastermind. First it was Sakuma, then it was Serika, but it was this guy all along.
ところが、いざ実験を始めようとして驚いたね。すでに僕の出番はなかった。ニュージェネの狂気の再来という猟奇殺人事件が発生し、渋谷は大騒ぎになった。
Okay, I guess I was wrong. So he didn't, once again just, amending what I said. The fact that,
宮代くんのお友達が次々と起こしてくれた事件は、僕が計画していたものとはかなり違う形だったけど、それはそれで実に有意義だった。
Never mind then. I guess Serika still was the person behind the Return of the New Generation madness serial killings, but clearly since all the victims in those killings were Gigalomaniacs themselves created through the third melt, and thus Chaos Child Syndrome patients, Wakui had still planned to use them in his twisted experiments regardless. Huh? Miyashiro's friend did the killings. Yeah. You may have erased Serika's memories, Takuru, but there was one unfortunate variable that you overlooked. Of course, there was no way that you could have known at the time that Shuichi Wakui was actually in league with the Committee of 300 this whole time. He remembers that Serika was behind it. What was he talking about? Miyashiro was the killer, right? Unfortunately not, Serika. It was you. And unfortunately, because of this unfortunate series of events, your efforts, as noble as they were, have sadly come to nothing. I could see that Miyashiro's legs had stopped shaking. Hopefully that's a good sign. He stood tall, even in the face of that terrifying weapon. Yeah, Wakui's own D-sword, which is actually still the same weapon. It just looked different from a different angle, but it's the same sword. For a moment I was entranced by the sight.
"症候群者たちは自分たちよりさらに惨めな人間、無残な姿で殺されたり、殺人犯として追い立てられたり、そういう人間の姿を見て興奮し、大喜びしていた。
So the Chaos Child Syndrome patients were actually even more affected by the return of the new generation madness.
平穏な渋谷の生活がこれほどかき乱されているのにもかかわらずだよ。彼らの妄想シンクロにはほころび一つ発生しなかったんだ。なるほどと思ったよ。これはワンワールドオーダーの理論とも一致する。非支配者階級に反乱を起こすような勇気を持たせないためには、彼らより仮想に見える人間を餌として与えればいい。そうすれば彼らは自分たちが支配されていることにすら気づかないまま仮想階級をいたぶり、時にそれを正義だと声高に叫んで怒り、自己満足に浸る。
Yeah. Here, Wakui is going into this sort of pseudo-political tangent here.
喜ぶ、楽しむ。
But basically, that's his explanation behind his manipulation of the people of Shibuya.
そうしておけば本当の支配者階級は安泰だ。いやはやまったく愚民っていうのは御しやすい。
Yeah, hence why the Committee of 300 are content with pulling the strings behind the scenes. However, that last statement of yours, Suichi, can easily be used against you people.
とまあそんな風にね。僕はなかなかの成果を委員会に示すことができていたんだよ。なのにさ。
But then something happened that you didn't anticipate or didn't like. Wakui came toward me, a terrifying look on his face. I tried to take a step back without thinking. Miyashiro grabbed me by the arm.
僕から離れるな。
Yeah, do as he says, Serika. He's not the enemy. Wakui is.
今だけでいい。言うことを聞いてくれ。
Takuru's voice brooks no argument. I don't get no argument from me. No, I'm scared. I don't know what to do.
宮代くん、君が全てを台無しにしてしまった。ギガロマニアックスの件もワンワールドオーダーの箱庭実験も。
Yeah. Looks like Takuru's sacrificing of his powers as well as reforming Serika into an ordinary human being didn't sit well with Wakui's plans after all.
さっきも言ったけどね、君を早々に処分しなかったことを僕はひどく責められた。まさかあんなに序列を下げられるとはね。
Lowering your rank is the least of your worries. If you had actually succeeded in your experiments, they would have easily have disposed of you rather than given you credit. Yeah. When it comes to the loyalty, the Committee of 300 is about as far from that category as you can get.
君のせいで僕は次の世界に残れないかもしれないんだよ、宮代くん。
The next world. That phrase again. Is there a next world? And can we reach it? Thereby thwarting his plans. And those of the committee. When I saw the weapon in Wakui's hands for the first time, I realized I might die.
もしかして殺されるの？本当に殺されるの？
Pretty much. He's going to kill the both of us. All of us. Death had never really seemed real to me. I hadn't even thought about it. But now it was right in front of me. The huge blades in Wakui's hands, and the eerie light they gave off were pulling me deeper into the terror.
納得できる答えを僕に与えてくれないか。どうして君は現実に戻ることを選んでしまったんだい？
So this is reality. I mean, of course, the return of the new generation madness probably did happen in reality as well as the synchronized illusion. But still, this is the real world.
答えないのか。それなら
Well, looks like the time for talking is finally over. Or maybe not. Wakui looked at me. Beforehand, Serika didn't care whether she lived or died once Takuru was gone. But things have changed.
今からでも引き戻してあげようか。
The ends of the blades were pointed at me. They opened like the jaws of a shark to devour me. And a white light sparked between them as they got closer. It was a loud throbbing noise in my head. He's channeling his D-sword to try and awaken Serika's memories and personality. My whole field of vision suddenly shifted. I put my hand to the wall to try and steady myself, but it wasn't the wall, it was the floor. I had fallen to the ground. I held my head. The pain was so bad I couldn't sense anything else. One vision after another came flowing inside of me. Delusions or memories. It felt like my head was being ripped open, as if my memories were being forced to come back. Yeah, I thought as much. What was this? Where was this? Who was this? All the moments and memories. They're coming back with a vengeance. No, I knew all the answers. What? I knew. That couldn't be true. Oh, but it is. Yeah. Wakui's undoing Takuru's final wish to Serika Onoe. It had to be true. I'd seen them before. Worse, you lived them before. No, I'd never seen them before in my life. The memories and the amnesia are clashing together. I clutched my head in my hands, confused. I curled up into a ball and moaned. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if these visions are real or not. Well, considering the fact that Serika was a participant in the delusionary experiment as well, I don't know anything.
私
But all those sealed memories are... they're returning. Or what's going to happen?
やめろ
For a moment there I thought that Wakui had let down his guard, but at the 11th hour, he's managed to intercept Takuru. I saw Miyashiro try to stand between me and Wakui and get slammed backward. He was smashed into the floor hard.
邪魔しないでもらえるかな。君には何もできないんだから。
That's my line.
今頃後悔しても遅いよ。ギガロマニアックスの力を放棄しなければ僕を殺せたかもしれないのに。
It's got you there, Takuru. Miyashiro. Why? Why was he trying to save me?
オノエ大丈夫か
Because he still believes in you. Even now, even after everything that you did. All the murders and all the atrocities. Takuru Miyashiro still believed in Serika Onoe. For a moment I couldn't speak, but I looked at him and nodded. When I heard him call me Onoe. It felt like it overlapped with a memory that made me want to cry.
これは
Wakui was frowning at Miyashiro as he held the huge blade in his hand.
予想以上に硬いな、彼女は。これだけのことをできる力があったっていうのに、君はどうして。
それが僕があいつにできる唯一の償いだから。
At some point, I'd forgotten the pain in my head. I couldn't take my eyes off Miyashiro.
僕たちは一緒にいたら何も変わることができない。離れたからこそ僕もあいつももう間違えない。そうじゃないとまた繰り返してしまう。
Indeed. After all, Serika was a reflection of Takuru's internal desires and wishes. And despite everything that had happened, for good or ill, yeah, they were essentially condemned to their
繰
mistakes.
り返せばいいじゃないか。それのどこが悪い。
They needed to break the cycle. Miyashiro was crawling on the ground, but he looked up at his enemy with eyes that would never give in to anyone.
男が好きな子にすがりついて生きてくなんてできるわけないだろ。
それが理由かい。
You've come a long way since the beginning of this, Takuru Miyashiro. You've shed the skin of the obnoxious, self-righteous right-sider. Even when Wakui looked at him with a wry smile, he didn't flinch at all. There was no sign of shame. And that high school awkwardness that we came to be all too familiar with has also completely disappeared.
そんな理由で悪いか。神様気取りのあんたたちには人の気持ちが理解できないだけだろ。
Indeed, the committee has manipulated reality and the world for far too long.
なら試してみろよ。
試す？
僕のことなんて殺そうと思えばいつでも殺せるんだろ。だったらもう少し僕を試してみたらどうだ。
Yeah. Even though they could pretty much wipe us out, Wakui and the committee are still just toying with us.
あんたの言うことが正しいんならいつか僕は戻ってしまうだろう。でも僕が正しければ戻ることは絶対にない。それを試してみたらどうだ。
It's a big risk. Miyashiro stood up slowly, without anyone's help.
そんな口車に僕が乗るとでも？
乗るさ。だってあんたは序列とやらを元に戻したいんだろう。次の世界で生き残るためにみっともなく委員会にしがみついて。
And after that very lovely dinner, I have returned. Sorry for that slight delay there. But anyway, it appears as though Takuru is turning the situation around, digging their proverbial psychological knife into Wakui instead of the other way around. Because, for his own reasons, Shuichi Wakui is insistent on getting back in the committee's good graces, which is why he's gone to the lengths and troubles of setting all this up. In other words, he has a stake in this. But whether or not the committee will accept him back is another matter entirely. It's even more possible that they've already left him behind. After all, even with his previous or original ranking, Wakui was nothing more than an expendable asset, like pretty much most of the other rank and file of the Committee of 300. Because as we all know, if it came to a decision between the committee leadership and Shuichi Wakui, the committee leadership wouldn't hesitate in the slightest.
だったらあんたを失墜させた僕という本当のイレギュラーを観測し続ければいい。もしも僕がギガロマニアックスに戻ってしまったら、あんたにいくらでも協力してやる。あんたの成果にすればいい。
But will Shuichi rise to the bait? We can only wait and see.
自分をかけて僕とゲームをしようっていうのかい？
Well, what we've really done so far, if I'm being really honest, is playing games.
ああ。元からこれはクソったれなゲームだったんだからな。
Indeed. Serika, Sakuma, Wakui, the Committee of 300, Takuru Miyashiro, and even myself. We've all been playing games of our very own, concurrently. But we need to finish this game. Wakui isn't impressed, but I get the feeling that he's, he cannot help but be intrigued. Even though it is an obvious ploy on Takuru's part.
もちろん僕は負ける気なんてない。最後の1秒まであがいてやる。
宮代くん、君って面白いね。
Indeed. Wakui can't resist trying to break down Takuru's determination and spirit. Suddenly, Wakui vanished, leaving behind only the eerie light of his blade seared into our eyes.
了解した。そのゲーム受けて立つことにしよ
う。Well, so far so good.
それじゃ今からスタートだ。宮代くん。
Now we have to see it through to the end. Can't renege on our end of the bargain after all. I heard a voice from somewhere. We're back to this kaleidoscopic stained glass pattern again. It was like it was coming from directly within my head. And then everything went quiet.
おい、宮代。
That was Mio's voice. Suddenly Kunisada was back, just as quickly as she disappeared. Maybe she wasn't sent to the Dirac Sea. Maybe she was plunged back into the delusionary world. It was as if she'd never left.
大丈夫ですか?
Yeah, was all she said. She was biting her lip. Perhaps frustrated at how much stronger her opponent was. Well, Wakui is a Gigalomaniac, and you're not. That's all there is to it. Well-being aside, we cannot afford to let our guard down in the slightest.
Wakui はどうした?
とりあえず口車に乗ってくれました。しばらくは大丈夫だと思います。それより。
Miyashiro pointed to the PC, and Kunosato leapt at it.
例の画像は無事だが、くそ。やられた。委員会に関するデータが。
Took all the information on the committee. Yeah. All we have is the Rorschach.
おい、大丈夫か?
I would say you took your sweet time, Shinjo, but given who we're up against, I will let it slide.
ええ。
いきなり中に入れなくなった。一体何があったんだ?
Yeah. We've been played, is what happened. The sound of fingers on a keyboard echoed off the walls. Kunosato grimaced. Yeah, that data is gone.
重要なハードディスクだけ物理的に破壊していった。これでは復旧もできない。涌井め。
Yeah. He thwarted your plans of revenge. Without that information on the committee, we are not quite back at square one, but pretty damn close.
涌井がいたのか?
Indeed he was. Miyashiro nodded.
詳しいことは後で話します。先に目的を済ませましょう。久野里さん、さっきのデジカメ、動画も撮れますよね。
Yeah, even though it now fits into Wakui's own schemes, we have no choice but to imprint the 12th Rorschach with the Chaos Child patients and see what happens.
ここで犯行声明の映像を撮る気か?
はい。涌井は、委員会はもうここには現れません。一刻も早く カオスチャイルド症候群に関することは終わりにしたいんです。
Kunasato bit her lip once more and sighed a little.
新庄さん、こいつの言う通りにしてやろう。脳内スキャン装置を運び出す手はずを整えてくれ。あれを調べれば手がかりくらいは残っているかもしれない。
It's a very tall order.
ああ。
The detective seemed a little annoyed, but he must have been used to being talked to like that, because he went to the other room. Miyashiro was looking at me. I tried to tell him about all the fragments of memories I'd seen. But just as I opened my mouth, he motioned for me to stop.
尾上さん。
He still wants her to walk away from all this, and with good reason.
何？
案内ありがとう。怖い目に遭わせちゃってごめん。もう大丈夫だから。
そんなこと。
I don't care about that. But those memories.
ここからは僕たちの仕事だ。だから。
Unfortunately, Serika can't walk away. That was unanswered questions. Miyashiro looked toward the exit. You can go, he seemed to say. No, that wasn't it. Go home, his eyes said. He wants her to walk away from it all. I had to ask. I had to find out for sure. But my lips wouldn't move. The words wouldn't come out. Why? Why was I? Because it is his wish.
やるぞ。
That is what Takuru Miyashiro desires. For Serika Onoe to remain an ordinary person.
はい。
Miyashiro turned his back and began to ignore me. He followed Kunisato's instructions and put a chair up against the wall.
何を喋ったらより注目を集めますかね。
知るか。お前が起こしたことになっている事件だろ。それらしいことを言っておけ。
Basically, Takuru and Mio are essentially trying to use what Wakui was using in order to manipulate the Chaos Child patients. Supposedly. My headache had almost gone away when Wakui disappeared, but it started to get a little stronger. My head was throbbing with pain, and for some reason the pain was eating into my heart.
なら、この世界を恨んだり憎んだりしてみましょうか。
That's sure to get the committee's attention, much less the Chaos Child patients.
妥当なところだな。 それで行こう。
The two of them had stopped paying any attention to me at all. I staggered toward the exit, as if trying to escape from the headache. Unfortunately, Serika is now torn in two. I turned back before I went up the stairs, but no one was looking at me. Miyashiro wasn't looking at me either. I left the basement without saying a word.
僕がこの事件を起こしたのは僕のせいではありません。この社会そのものが害悪に満ちているからです。
In all manner of fairness, he's actually not wrong. Not really. I could hear him speaking into the camera below. I was getting further and further away. I was staggering unsteadily, as if I was in a waking dream. But I'd succeeded in my goal. Somewhat. Kurisu would wake up now, and then I could ask her about me. But there's still many things left unsaid. Huh? Me? Why was I going to ask her about myself again? Everything felt so hazy, I couldn't remember. Well, it didn't matter. I should just do what Miyashiro said and go back home. Even now, with her personality taken from her, Serika Onoe is still bound by Takuru Miyashiro's wishes. My head hurt. I probably wasn't feeling well. I needed to go home and rest.
私の家ってどこだっけ?
After all, that apartment in Yokohama belongs to Momose.
ああ、そっか。横浜だよ。
That's just the place you live in. That isn't her home. Because Serika Onoe has no home. Why I'd come here, what the result had been, and even how I felt right now. I didn't know any of it anymore. I was walking through town. It was probably the slowest I'd ever walked in my life. Well, at least it's a nice sunset. Or maybe it's... No, it's sunset. As the sun started to set on the city, I kept having trouble walking forward. But I couldn't stop, compelled by Takuru's wish. I realized that I wasn't supposed to be here. So I forced myself to keep going. And yet, she's fighting against herself. For some reason, once I got away from Miyashiro, my headache stopped. It was as if his very existence was the cause of it.
あ、そうか。今日って。
What is today? I looked at all the happy girls and remembered. February 14th. Valentine's Day. Not one of my favorite days, it has to be said. The day when girls told boys they liked them. At least, yeah. That's how it supposedly goes.
私、あんたみたいなやつ、大嫌い。
I hadn't really been thinking about it when I said it. It wasn't often that you told someone to their face that you didn't like them. You only realized what you wanted to say after you said goodbye. Was that a line from a movie? I honestly couldn't tell you, Serika. Who did I go see it with? I laughed, even though I thought it was stupid. I was happy now. I bet the old me was a nasty girl who hadn't been happy at all. But now I'd forgotten all about it. About who Serika Onoe originally was. And what might have yet been. And around us there are people milling about Shibuya, all of whom are none the wiser. I'd forgotten all about it and I could be happy. That's right, I was happy now. Unfortunately, that happiness came at too high a price, I feel. That's why I had to laugh.
ねえ、セリカ、あなたはどこへ行く気なの？
I asked myself, but I didn't answer. I just kept walking. I was walking in a crowd full of people. As I walked, I stopped being able to figure out how much of the world was real. All the nightmarish things that just happened. All these people were walking without knowing anything about them. Which world was real? It had to be this one. Yeah. Wakui confirmed that this was reality. After all, the big TVs were playing wonderful music, and there was a delicious smell coming from the crepe stand. This was the right world. The fun world. It had to be this world. So why? But I knew that this was a lie. But I pretended I didn't, and I kept smiling and walking. I was a liar. The little silhouette of Serika Onoe. Someone who was honest with themselves, like maybe a child or something, might have gone back to that basement. Because this town, this place, it should be so much fun, but it felt awful. I couldn't find the place where I belonged. Kind of feels like Rintaro Okabe when he chose to remain on the Beta World line in Steins Gate Zero instead of going back to save Kurusu Makase. But I couldn't go back to that basement. I wasn't a kid anymore. Not that you ever truly were. Not anymore. I was a lying grown-up. Which is... part of that is true. The other part, not so much. There's a flash of Wakui during our encounter. Suddenly a scene from the nightmare came back. The ruined city, 6 years ago. The clinic at Aoba Dorm, the newspaper club, the return of the new generation madness, and Serika's role in it all. Is leaving it all behind the right thing to do? It should be, and yet. The fragments of memories I'd seen there. They were scattered about like the pieces of a puzzle, and they were eating away at me like shattered glass. And beyond them, I remembered a tiny little feeling.
これどうにかしてよね。
There was probably no way to get it back. I'd realized that no matter who I asked, it was the one thing they'd never tell me. The memories and feeling kept spinning around about inside me. I wanted to go back there, but I couldn't. And night falls. I kept walking with nowhere to go. Just a lonely girl in a lonely city. And eventually, I found myself in front of a building near the station. It had been 30 minutes since the sun set, and now it is nighttime.
なんだっけ、光を。
Why are we here of all places? Why the Hikariwo Building? I looked up at a tall building. I couldn't tell how many floors it was. I couldn't remember ever coming here. Oh, but you've been here before, in the past. But my body went inside without hesitation. This is where it all ended last time. I stepped out of the elevator and saw a pretty theater. I could see a poster for a musical on the wall. There was a picture on it that I'd seen somewhere before. The soiree was just about to start. Get to learn what a soiree is, ladies and gentlemen. Theatre lingo for a performance that was held in the evening. A daytime performance is a matinee. Huh. Honestly, never knew about that. I mean, I heard, I know the word soiree, I just never knew what it was until now. I did know what a matinee was, however. I stood in line to buy a ticket. Luckily, there was a seat open near the front of the house. Far too ominously convenient for my liking. I bought my ticket and buried myself in the waves of people going to the theater. The Qub.
ここ確か。
Yeah. What? Something was strange. I thought I'd never been here before, but it was familiar, because this is where you were reborn. That final encounter. I'd come here before. The Theater Qub. I walked up the stairs through the crowd and opened the door to the theater. Just hope the soiree is good enough. It should be. And when I stepped inside, I heard a sound like something bursting within me. Something snapped within my head. I walked toward my seat. I slowly weaved my way through the other audience members, going down the steps of the corridor. The curtain was lowered, and on it there was a projection with the name of the musical and an illustration on it. But what I was seeing was an empty theater. Where is everyone? An empty stage, lit up by bright lights. sat in my seat. And after a while, the buzzer rang and the curtain came up. The orchestra played a loop sound that echoed in the pit of my stomach, and the cast came up on stage. But my mind was still seeing the same thing. It was still looking at an empty stage. Yeah. Empty except for two people. Wataru Sakuma and Takuru Miyashiro.
ここで私は
Indeed, she's finally starting to remember. On stage, the actors started to pantomime rowing a boat. They were creating a delusional world on the stage, filled with things that didn't exist. But I was seeing a different world. It was the world I'd lived in before. The musical kept going, but the empty stage that only I saw didn't change. My memories ached. My feelings threatened to overflow. When will the memories finally converge upon the reality? I'd done something here with someone. The sadness from when I talked with them was filling my heart. The pain in my throat when I screamed at them was coming back to me. It hurt to breathe. I was gasping like I was underwater. The actors sang, their voices riding on the powerful music. It was a song the heroes sang to inspire themselves and the people before they went off to fight the revolution. You know, usual opera stuff. Although I don't know if that's actually an opera or not. The people of this fictional world all lined up and yelled. Come along and join us, they sang. And then it happened. I saw someone on the empty stage. They were holding something up high in their hands. I could see that it was a sword, gleaming with a dull shine. A sword that he will never wield again. It was a tool for battle, but not an ordinary weapon. Oh no.
それが僕があいつにできる唯一の償いだから。僕たちは一緒にいたら何も変わることができない。離れたからこそ僕もあいつももう間違えない。
Was that second statement true?
男が好きな子にすがりついて生きてくなんてできるわけないだろ。
I was crying. Tears of joy or tears of sadness? It was the same tears I felt on my cheek when I woke up in the morning. The tears that she shed right before Takuru altered her life forever. I quickly wiped them away with the back of my hand, but they didn't stop. I kept wiping them away and they didn't stop coming. It was no good. They wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop them. I buried my face in my hands. The subliminal memories, still buried deep within her mind.
後悔なんてしないよ。僕は自分のしたことに悔いはない。満足してるんだ。
このクズ。続き、ずっと隣にいたって誰？
親友だよ。
親友なんていたんだね。あんなひどい殺人を犯すようなあんたにも。あんたの親友って同じように症候群者だったの？今何をしてるの？
いや、普通の人だった。もう亡くなったよ。彼女はこの世界のどこにもいない。
And yet she still is Takuru Miyashiro. She still is. In spite of your best efforts. The play ended, and the audience gave a standing ovation. The actors stood on the stage and bowed. But the events playing out in front of Serika Onoe's eyes are quite different. Alone, I wiped away my tears. I sat there for a long time, unable to get up. Yeah, at this point, I know my commentary is getting a bit droll, but well, this is a fairly emotional moment for Serika. No one else could see the blurry world I saw. I looked up to stop the tears from falling down. And the lights on the stage shone down on me like a spotlight. Odd. Are those lights shining on the audience? Or just Serika? They are kind of bright though. I guess that's it. I guess that is the end. Roll the credits. As we see the faces of everyone: Takuru, Serika, Kurisu, Senri, Hanai, Uki, Kazuki, and some very interesting artwork. That is the end. Chaos Child. It's kind of an anticlimactic ending. But then again, I suppose there had to be a bit of subversion somewhere. Other times we had a big, huge ending, a very climactic ending of sorts. where there will be a final showdown, and then the victors walk away, heads held high. Not in this instance. What is the outcome of the game between Takuru Miyashiro, Wakui, the Committee of 300, and the committee themselves? I honestly don't know, because that is also a mystery that shall remain a mystery, along with many mysteries. Did the Chaos Child Syndrome patients be cured by the power of the 12th Rorschach? Who could say? A lot of unknown mysteries, and at the forefront of them all, at least in my mind, the eternal mystery of the nameless waitress of the manga cafe LAX. We shall never know, at least I shall never know, who she was. But yeah, it's been one hell of a lengthy ride. There's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of interesting moments, and a lot of disturbing and tragic ones as well. But all in all, it's been a very entertaining experience with a lot of dynamic elements, and in many respects I actually like this more than Chaos Head. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Chaos Head from start to finish, but Chaos Child, I was glad to be taken along for a ride. But yeah, I certainly had my expectations subverted and even shattered in numerous respects. But this is how Chaos Child ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And so the game and the curtain comes to a close. Of course, there are the sumo stickers, the 11th Rorschach, and you can see the sort of outline image of a D sword on the right hand side. Yeah, not the happiest of endings, but then again, it didn't need to be a happy ending, at least in this instance. For what it's worth, this was a very unique experience. I'm glad to have been along for the ride. Say what you will, it's certainly been interesting from beginning to end. But after so many episodes, so many hours, it is time for this journey to finally reach the finish line. What an epic adventure. It's the sound of static. October 2016. It looks like things aren't over quite yet. adventurers. So when we return, there is still one final step of this Let's Play of Chaos Child. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.